Hello, hello, hello. Well, we are excited to come your way today. It's Sunday. We are beginning a new talk series, which is Let's Talk. We want to first of all welcome our online viewers. We want to welcome our viewers on YouTube. We want to welcome our viewers also on Facebook. So we'll give ourselves maybe some one or 2 minutes to get people to log on to come online, and then we'll open officially. So just give us a moment. We also welcome our online viewers, and I will tell you all about what we are going to be doing today. It's going to be an interesting program, and it's going to be an interesting show. It's going to be a very, very good one. So I want to go online quickly and welcome those who are on. Let's see those who are here on Facebook. Well, we want to welcome Derek, Dre. We want to welcome Precious Smith, Naya, Bobby. We want to welcome Reverend Darkett all the way from the UK, Honorable Nana B. We want to welcome, who else do we have here? It is well, Amanda. Well, good afternoon. Some blessings to you, Kwachua, Vivian. We want to welcome them. A lot of people are coming online. I'll do my best to try and catch them on and give them some shout out. Hodela, Georgina, Mamiya, Patricia, Regina. Just keep coming in, Doreen, George. Yeah, keep coming in. Tell us where you are watching from. Pulak. Keep coming in. So whilst you guys are jumping online, well, as soon as you come online, do this for us. We want you to share this video. We want you to invite people to come on because it's going to be a very, very educative, interactive, and it's going to be a very, very good program and good event. I'll go ahead quickly to welcome all my panelists who are here. As you are aware, we are dealing with a situation now in the United States. I have been in this country for 17 years, just like as if I came in yesterday. I've been here for 17 years and been pastoring Royal House Chapel, Grace to Grace Center. We've had I've observed a few things in this country. The country has been very good to me. I'm blessed with 3 children, 2 boys. And so I'm very much interested in what has been going on in our country. I've been here to witness a few things, but a recent event has really, really got me thinking and has placed in my heart for us to start talking and start discussing and start seeing how people of color can be able to influence society positively in a way where we can change what is happening and bring some restoration to the minority and justice to the minority community. And so today I have here with me, I am a distinguished attorney from the Prince George's County by name Gladys Witherspoon. Gladys is going to introduce herself. Her resume is very heavy, so I'll leave that to her for her to do. I also have here a council member of the city where our church is, a very young, handsome, intelligent, and a man with a heart for his community. I've had a discussion with him in the past, and I really love this guy, how much he's passionate about our community, and then he wants to bring a change and wants to help people in our community. So welcome, Council Member Brensis. And I also have here a U.S. career diplomat who is also quite vocal on issues that involves minorities. Her name is Denise Loramente. So at this moment, like I said, I have 2 kids. I have 3 kids. I have 2 sons. And these 2 sons of mine, since I came, I've been studying the culture. I've been in the country for 17 years. I've seen things on the news. I've spoken to them. I've given them advice, especially in the area of dealing with the police. I've told them, when the police stops you, if ever you are driving, put your hands on the steering wheel, respond politely, do all of that. But I've seen that all of this has been done by people, and yet the people have not been treated fairly. In some cases, justice has not been served, where the law enforcement officers, from my perspective, have abused their power. Yet justice has not been served. In some cases, people have to actually demonstrate, and people of influence must get involved before something is done. So today we are excited to have Gladys here. And Gladys is going to first of all talk to us about knowing your rights and learning how to be assertive when you are dealing with the police, because she's a criminal defense attorney, and she has a lot of experience in this area. She's going to talk to you about herself. She's been one of 100 trial judges in the country, top 100 trial judges in the country. So her resume is quite heavy. And so I'm going to ask Gladys. Gladys, please come on, introduce yourself and talk to us about how to deal with the police, how we can be assertive. After you finish all of this, and of course, people are going to come in questions also, we are going to move into this George Floyd issue and go back to discuss how to deal with this issue and how we can be able to build a stronger community. Go ahead, Gladys.
Hi, I'm Gladys Witherspoon, and I've been an attorney, a defense attorney for 25 years. I started off in the District of Columbia, and I worked for the Public Defender Service there as a line attorney, then a supervisor, and then ultimately I became the Felony Trial Division, the chief of the Felony Trial Division. I then moved to Prince George's County, Maryland, and because I moved, I opened a practice here in Prince George's County, because being successful at getting people out and winning trials and that, it was uncomfortable, I would say. People would say to me, oh, you're in DC getting people out, and then you just go home to Prince George's County and leave us with these people who you gotten out. So I decided to practice where I live because it's only fair. And so I've been doing that for 25 years, both in the District of Columbia. I'm licensed in DC, I'm licensed in Maryland. So all over Maryland, I practice in federal court in Maryland, and I'm also licensed in the federal court in the district. So that's my background. I really don't want to take a whole lot of time talking about me, except to say, to correct you that I'm one of the top 100 trial lawyers in the country. You said judges, and I'm not there yet.
I'm sorry.
I'm not there yet, but hopefully I will be, because I am running for judge in Prince George's County. Okay. So the purpose of this is to talk about knowing your rights, right? And I know that it's difficult when people are stopped by the police. You're a little bit scared. It's a little bit nerve-wracking. Everybody's afraid when they're stopped by the police. But I think if you follow some guidelines that you can, one, assert your rights and keep your rights and still walk away, as opposed to ending up under somebody's knee or shot. And that's what we've done. That's what I've done now for about 5 years. I've been doing this seminar right at the beginning of the summer, particularly when more people are out, they're out of school, they're moving around. We tend to do about 3 or 4 in the summer in different churches and different community centers, just so that people can be comfortable with what they have to do, what they can do, I should say, when you are stopped by the police. So the first thing that I want to tell you is that when police are stopping you, the most important thing that you have to know is, whether if you're walking down the street or if you're in a car, if you're walking down the street and the police are asking you anything, if they ask you a question that says, can I talk to you, or anything like that, that's a request. And you don't have to say yes to a request. And I think people get nervous right there, right? And I've seen it all the time. Police say, hey, buddy, can I talk to you? They just walk up on you. Hey, buddy, can I talk to you for a minute? That's a request. That means that you don't have to do it. And that means that you have the right to say, no, thank you, and keep moving. If they order you to do it, right? If somebody says stop, stop, I want to talk to you, stop, I have questions for you, then you are obligated to stop. That doesn't mean you have to answer questions. It means that you are obligated to stop and do as you are being told to do. And that's a tough thing to do, right? Because a lot, especially, I know, being a man, some man comes telling you, you need to do what I tell you to do, it's a problem. But you need to do what they tell you to do, even if you think it's illegal and against your rights. And this is why, because you want to come out alive. And your job is not to argue your case in the middle of the street. You're never going to win, right? Your job is to preserve your life and preserve your rights. So when somebody says you have the right to remain silent, or I have a question for you, you don't have to answer those questions. All you have to do is be there and hear the questions because you've been told to stay, but you certainly don't have to answer them. And you have the right not to answer questions. So let me give you an example. I think it's the best way to explain it. You're walking down the street, you just came out the store, or I just saw this the other day. Some guy was walking in the neighborhood and people started calling the police because he wasn't supposed to be in the neighborhood. He looked suspicious. He didn't do anything. He literally was just walking down the street, maybe too slow. I think he stopped and sat on the stoop for a minute because he was on the phone. But nonetheless, people called the police on him. So the police showed up to question him about why he was there. See, now the officer said to him, "Can I talk to you?" And the answer to that is a simple no, thank you, and move on. But the officer in this case actually said, "Stop, I want to talk to you." And so that's no longer a question, that's a demand. And so you have to stop. Right. And when you stop, you don't have to have a conversation. You just have to, stop and wait for the next thing they want you to do. If they're asking you, "Can I search you?" Again, that's a request. And so you can say, "No, thank you. I don't want to be searched." This happens a lot when people are stopped in cars. I think people think that if I just let them do what they want, then I'll get to go home. But the reality is that police are allowed to lie to you. So they will say, "If you just let me do this, then you get to go home," right? But the reality is that
Hold on, hold on 1 second.
Mm-hmm.
You said the police are allowed to lie to you. What does that mean?
That means that they can say to you, I got a call that you were involved in this. You specifically, John, your car, we have your tag number, and your car was there. That could be a big old lie, right? And in your heart, I wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
Or you were there, it doesn't matter. But they will say that to you. "Well, we have the tag number, so you better tell me the truth," right? That's how they get you to start talking. Even when police say that kind of stuff, it could be a lie. It doesn't mean that they do have the tag number. And I'm one of those people that watch all those crime shows, and you see it all the time. They say, "Well, we told him that because we wanted to see if he would go ahead and give us the confession," right? So they can lie to you. And the big question people say to people who are talking to them, for instance, buying drugs, "Are you a cop?" Like they have to say, "No, I'm not a cop." Police can lie to you. They can say, "No, I'm not a cop." And so you're not protected by the police lying to you.
Let me ask you a question on this same thing that you are talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So the police stops you,
Mm-hmm.
or they are in your neighborhood, and they are trying to talk to you, and you don't want to talk. And we've seen videos, we've heard people's stories
Mm-hmm.
where you do not want to talk,
Mm-hmm.
and some of them they are very short-tempered. They just get angry,
Mm-hmm.
and they kind of want to like use violence,
Mm-hmm.
push you to talk as if you are not obeying their instructions, kind of like you're supposed to obey me. Now, what we can say is that in this day and age, we now have cameras, so we have people who are able to take videos. But how do you stand and be able to defend yourself if you don't have a camera, nobody's watching? How are you going to be able to stand for your right?
Okay, so the first thing I tell people is to always have your license, your registration ready. And I usually, if I'm, if we're in a place together, I have a know your rights card, and a card that says, I don't want to answer any questions. I don't consent to searches. Please call my lawyer. That's it. And so once you do that, they're done. They can't force you. They can't coerce you. They can't tell you some crazy story about why you should talk. Once you say, I don't want to answer any questions. I don't consent to searches. Please call my lawyer. That's it. And I usually give that card out so that people can have it with them at all times. It's hard to do, right? Because it's kind of scary, like you said, because this guy wants me to answer a question. I don't want to answer questions. This happened to me. I got stopped, and I'm always telling people, okay, I have a lead foot. True. So I'm always telling people, when you're stopped, the first thing they always say is, where are you going? Where are you coming from? You don't have to answer that. That's nobody's business. Where you been, where you coming from. If it's going to help, then, sometimes I say, I really got to go to the bathroom if it's going to help me get out of this ticket, right? But the answer really is, do you want my license or registration? Because I'm not answering questions. That's a hard thing to say. I don't answer questions. But it's the thing that will stop you from giving out information that you don't want the police to have. And and I've had people do it, and they come back to me and they say, okay, I said I don't answer questions, and he said, oh, you're a smart aleck, and I said, and what did you say? And he said, I said, no, I'm not. My lawyer told me that I don't have to answer questions, and so here's my license, here's my registration, and that ended the conversation.
How about when they ask you to stop? You don't want to answer questions. You've given them your registration and your ID and everything. And then they now want to search your vehicle.
You have the right to say no to that. And again, these are difficult things to do in the night when you're by yourself with the police. But it's also the thing that will protect your rights. And I think what's happened is so many people give in and just let them do what they want, that now things have just gone haywire, right? Because actually, he's a judge now. A colleague of mine at the Public Defender Service is a judge in federal court now. And he was on the Baltimore-Washington Parkway here, and he was stopped. He was coming back from New York in a nice car with his mother because they had come back from a funeral, and he got stopped. It was raining, it was cold, and they were in mourning. And the police stopped them and said, where are you going? And he said, here's my license and registration. You stopped me. They actually didn't have a reason to stop him. But why they stopped him is because they finally said, well, you're in this nice car and you're coming from New York. That was their reason for stopping them. And so they asked him, can they search his car? And he said no. And the officer said, okay, well, then you have to sit here and wait until the dogs come, the drug sniffing dogs come to search the car. And he said, fine, I'll wait. At this time, they don't know who he is. They have no idea what they're getting themselves into, right? And they said, okay, get out of the car. Now it's raining, pouring down rain, and his mother and he are sitting on the curb on the BW Parkway, pouring down rain, waiting for the dogs to do the sniff around the car. And that, I know that's a hard thing to do, but it's really the only way to continue to protect your rights. So of course the dogs came, they sniffed around the car. There was nothing. When he finished, he said, okay, I don't have a ticket. You've gone through my car. You've gone and made me sit outside. I need your badge number. And he ended up suing them and won. And he didn't really sue for money. He sued for information, so they could show how many times they've been stopping people, people of color, how many times they search people of color. And it kind of got things under control a little bit. But people have to be brave enough to do that without being nasty, right? You don't have to say, I'm not giving you anything. You don't have to do that. Well, you just have to be straightforward, polite, and assertive.
Well, sometimes I think the reason why people do that, because they also have something in their background. Mm-hmm. They have some criminal record, and they also have this feeling that, look, if I'm not a person of color, you probably wouldn't stop me anyway. Mm-hmm. So what you're doing is like a racial profiling.
Of course.
And so now they want to resist the police. So
you can resist. You can resist. but you can resist assertively, but not aggressively.
Well, and we are going to go into that very soon. And I'm sure with that, I'm going to bring in the council member, and I'm going to bring in Denise, and I'm sure our audience are going to get involved. So you've spoken to us, unless of course you have other stuff to add to what you were saying. But some of these things that you're talking about, we do them. But people get agitated after a while. They get angry after a while. I didn't go to high school in the States. People went, they saw their friends, their white friends, and how they have been able to get away with some stuff. And now they see that they are being treated in a way where other people are not treated like that. So I think that this is where the real issue is for many people now. I don't want to talk. I feel like they are racially profiling me. I feel like they are threatening me. Thank God for cameras. It's the cameras that are doing the saving now. But even with all of that, you're a defense criminal attorney. Even all of that, these people still get away. So before we start the second segment of the discussion, how do we deal with, now I go through all this racial profiling issue and all of that. If I come out of it, I've come out of it now. How do I get justice? And how can I pin these people down and make sure that they don't do it to other people?
Right. And that's what the judge, former lawyer, did, right? He got justice, but he had to sit in the rain to get it. And his mother, his elderly mother, had to sit in the rain to get it, because anything else would have put his life in danger, or he would have had to just give up his rights, which he wasn't willing to do. So that's the thing. You have to be able to stay assertive and strong, and don't let people, my dad always used to say, don't let people shrink you. And it means don't let them make you feel like you're not human, and so I just have to do whatever they want me to do.
You're running for office.
I am. I'm running for judge, and that's one of the reasons I'm running, because
you are running in PG County.
In Prince George's County, and we need judges in Prince George's County that understand what happens on this side of the courtroom, right? Defendants are standing there. They're not giving their name. They're called defendant the whole time. Sometimes judges don't even look at them. They're not being heard, and judges tend to come from prosecutor's office or the state's attorney's office or the county's office, and so they have this. I would say they have this deference. They always believe the police no matter what. And that's because there's no judge right now that has been a defense attorney that doesn't necessarily always believe the police officers, right? Who questions police officers and gives them hard questions, even in the middle of trials. And that's what we need. We need that. People need to vote to get the judges in who are going to hold the police accountable for their actions and for whatever they say. I know we're getting ready to talk about this, but it's a perfectly good example of Mr. Floyd. What happened the other night? That man, we saw everything on tape, and the police still wrote a different version, even though it was on tape, and they wrote a different version. And so imagine how many times different versions have been written that aren't on tape, and judges didn't call them on it. Because you can tell, if police officer says, I found this here, I found this on the side of the car, and then says, oh, I went and got a warrant, and then on the next page it says, I found it under the car seat. Those are things that are different things that are said that can't be both true, and judges need to hold police officers accountable.
Okay, as an accomplished defense attorney, what I want to ask, what's your take on this Mr. Floyd issue?
What's my take?
What's your take? Well, you've seen the videos.
I've seen the videos.
I'm not talking about demonstration. I'm just talking about from what you have seen so far. What amazing, what has been beating my mind as I continue to follow the story is that I saw the videos, and all the videos that are coming are from different angles. seemed to exonerate Mr. Floyd.
Mm-hmm.
But yet the charge sheet says that this man didn't die because he had shortness of breath, and that there is a possibility of intoxication, drug intoxication. There is also, he has an underlying health issue. And these are the things that angers us.
Right.
These are the things that make our stomach turn. These are the things that, so what is your take, number one?
Okay.
And then number two, why does it take so long for them to come out and to really, say whether this person is going to be charged or not?
Okay, this happened in Baltimore and it didn't take long. Mostly the state's attorney in Baltimore immediately did what she had to do. Everybody doesn't do that. And so let me tell you what my take, and I had to say that real quick. My take on it is I watched it. I didn't know when I watched it, and I wrote something about it and posted it. I didn't know when I watched it that I was getting ready to watch somebody die. I honestly thought that they said he died in the ambulance, but I didn't think that I literally was going to see someone take their last breath. And I was horrified. I was absolutely horrified. It really made me sad. And my take on it is that this officer and this medical examiner who's now saying, oh, he had these underlying issues, they all work together on a team, right? They all work together. The prosecutors with the police and the medical examiner and the drug experts, they all work together on a team to win as opposed to find justice. And I think that clouds their judgment. That clouds their judgment. Just like the case over in Georgia with the kid jogging, same thing. They knew this guy, they knew the guy who shot him, and they didn't charge him because they took his word for it. And had this tape not come out, it would be the same thing, right? These tapes are becoming a way of making officers and people committing crimes accountable. So I forgot your second question, so I'm sorry. But my take on it is that it was a murder. It was not a third-degree murder. A third-degree murder is a murder that you didn't think it would happen. But what I watched was a man who had his knee on somebody's neck for 9 minutes. And murder is just, first-degree murder is having the thought turn around in your mind, no matter how slight. That was 9 minutes of it turning around in his mind. And people saying to him, stop, you're killing him. I mean, people said those words to him. And I saw a man there who just was going to be right. And he was not going to stop. He wasn't going to stop. I saw a man who just, I'm right. You guys don't tell me what to do. I almost felt like the more people told him to stop, the worse it was getting for Mr. Floyd.
Now, who does the DA work for? If I have an issue with the police and the district attorney comes in, what is his role in the legal system, the DA?
I'm sorry?
What's the role of the district attorney?
The district attorney. Yeah, and I was interested in this case. I don't know
what the DA does. Who is it? Is he on our side?
So the district attorney, and his job is to present evidence of a crime. I thought it was interesting that he said, oh, I'm not sure we're going to be able to charge it because we have to be able to prove such and such. And I get at some level you do have to do that. But what he wanted to do was make the decision that a jury is supposed to make. Right? It's not up to him to decide if what the man did was murder. That's a question for the jury. We know good and well that if it had been anybody else, they'd have been charged immediately. They've been in jail, and then they let a jury decide. So this pre-decision that maybe it wasn't murder, that we have to look at it more carefully, is because he's on the team.
Okay, so he's also on the team. So right now, so it looks then like we're on our own in a way. We are on our own. I want to bring in Denise, and I want to bring in the council member, and I want our viewers, audience, wherever you are, I want you to get involved in this discussion, because now we are on this Mr. Floyd issue, okay? And we have here a very accomplished attorney running for office. And so she's giving us some of the inside outs of how the system works. And we also want to express our feelings, if we're allowed to do that. We also want to express our feelings. Once we do that, she's here. She can play the devil's advocate also to let us know how these people that they deal things, how the team on the other side will be thinking. They are not enemies really, but what we are saying is that we are dealing with a system in certain areas where justice is not served. And sometimes justice is delayed until when there is demonstration. And so Councilmember Brances, you can come in, or Denise, you can come in for free.
Sure. So first, thank you, Reverend Emmanuel, I think, for just initiating this much needed platform amongst the church and amongst some of our local leadership. I think that what's going on is very critical. And thank you, Gladys, for your insight on, knowing our rights. And I think that that's important. But I also want to shed light on, for me, what is the core of the issue, even before we should know our rights. Because I think that as Black and Brown people, there's a core issue that not everyone is aware of. And I think the George Floyd situation, the Amy Cooper situation has really shed light on a very, deeply rooted problem. And the problem for me, just speaking to the Black community in general, I think it's been really disheartening to just see some of the reactions and some of the comments from the Black community itself, particularly focusing on just the rioting and the looting, and ignoring the fact that we have a deep-rooted issue. And the deep-rooted issue is that we are faced with a very vicious, a very violent system. And the system is vicious to Black people. The system is violent to Black people. And this issue, and so this needs to sort of be at our conscience before we even begin to talk about the rioting or the looting. And so to see, I think, our Black community, add insult to injury and add fuel to the fire by oversimplifying what's happening. And I say oversimplifying because there's a lot of comments about just, judging the symptoms, before condemning the illness. And this system is an illness. And I think that as the Black community, if we cannot get it right, no one's going to get it right for us. If we cannot come to terms with the fact that we are currently faced with a very vicious system, and the vicious system is layered. It's layered with white privilege. It's layered with lack of access. It's layered with apathy, and it's layered with violence. And so as a young woman, a young Black woman, a young man, every time I go to work and I walk into a meeting, I walk into a violent environment. When I walk into boardrooms, it's violent. When I'm faced with the criminal justice system, I'm faced with a violent criminal justice system. Within the political framework, it's violent. And so for us, we are currently faced every single day with a violent system. And so if we can't come to terms with understanding and coming to that conscious, then we won't be able to change this systemic, vicious system that has underpinned us for so long. And for me, it's really disheartening to see that not everyone is on that same page. And, in order for us to be able to unravel some of these vicious systems, we have to at least come to that awareness. And so, those who are condemning the rioting and the looting, which is not a good thing. I don't think that anyone wants to see people burning police cars and looting stores. No one wants to see that, but it's a buildup of hurt. It's a buildup of frustration. It's a buildup of white privilege, lack of access, of violence that we go through every single day. And until we come to terms with that, we won't be able to change that because no one's going to change it for us. And so, this entire week, I've been saying over and over again that, and for me, particularly as a millennial and as a young Black woman, I think that our generation has a major responsibility to be able to be a part of this discourse, to change the discourse. And so as young people, we can't just continue to want to only protest or to want to show up just to protest. We have to want to show up to change the process. And so changing that process means, looking at Gladys, looking at councilmen, having, ensuring that we are creating the platforms, we're creating the opportunities, we are equipping people, we are encouraging people to have us be able to occupy these positions of power. And that's how you deal with some of these deep-rooted issues. And so first we have to acknowledge that one is a problem. And we can't just keep, just condemning and judging people for just expressing their frustration of something that has been going on for years, because we go through it every single day. And so what do we need to do to ensure that we have enough Black DAs, we have enough Black lawyers, we have enough, Black political people in office, and enough politicians, enough judges? What are we doing to create the same opportunities that John, who lives in Albuquerque, who's 18-year-old, right, who has, in order to be groomed and to go through the process of becoming a president or a senator or whatever, right? How can we create those same opportunities for the 18-year-old who lives in the Bronx, New York, who has a passion for these things? How can we hold their hand to be able to ensure that they have those same opportunities? And so we need a plan, and we need to show up not only to protest, but to show up for the process. And the first step is just recognizing that the system is violent and the system is vicious. And, even with the Amy Cooper situation, so there's the George Floyd situation. Amy Cooper was aware that she has a system that's in her advantage. She knew that if she called 911 in Central Park and immediately said that there's an African-American man that's threatening me, right? It was going to be in her advantage. She knew the implications of what would happen by saying that. But some Black people are not aware of this system. And for me, that's troubling, because I've seen too much judging going on, with our actions, instead of us recognizing that there's an issue and we need a plan in order to address the issue. There's a lot of judging that's happening, and we're not addressing the core root of the problem.
Let me let the councilman come in, because he's also a millennial, and he's rising gradually into a position of influence. So what's your take on all of this? What can we do, councilman?
I tell my recommendation, honestly, is for everyone to get involved. Everyone has their role. Like the protests, they're definitely needed, but everyone gets focused when it's election time. Oh, I'm going to vote for this president or that president. I want this person to be president. But your real change that's affected is me, your local leader, your mayor, your state legislators, your state senator, your state delegate. In Maryland, they call them a delegate, not a representative, but they're the same thing. And your governor. They affect your local laws, your life, your quality of life. Your mayor hires your chief of police, right? Your council approves them. So you guys elect your state's attorney, your district attorney. They don't just go there. They don't just get there. You actually check their name off. Your judges, you elect hopefully good people like Gladys Witherspoon. You want people like that in there that are fair. So when your peers are being judged by their peers, by the jury and the judge, that there's someone that's fair and that's just not sending them up the river. So what I would say what we need to do, along with planning and organizing, is be deeply rooted into your who is serving you, who is working for you. I work for you. So if you have to figure out, well, what is this person going to do for me? Are they accessible? Can I call on them? And are they going to hold? Are you happy in your city? Do you have an issue with police brutality in your city? Luckily for Laura, we don't. But that's not the case in Maryland. That's not the case in the country. So it's not enough to say, oh, we don't have that problem. But I'm still going to speak out against it, because we stand in solidarity with everyone else that's having that issue. That's saying, look, that's not good. It's not enough. Enough is enough of us standing on the wayside and saying, well, it's not my issue. It's not happening here. So I need everyone to go out and vote. The primary is June 2nd. That's coming up. Maybe your mayor's not up for election. Maybe it's just your congressman and president right now and just your judge. Judges serve a long term. You want someone there fair. Don't just check a name. Look into that. I don't care if you're not the one going to court all the time because you don't have those issues, but maybe you have a friend or family member that may. So it does affect your community. And so my take on that is getting deeply rooted and involved in your community, in bringing your concerns to your leaders and holding them accountable. Get them out if they're not serving you.
All right, Gladys, there's a question here for you, and then you can also give your take as we continue our discussion. It says, as a resident of PG County, is there a history of police brutality in PG County? What has been done to address this issue?
Well, you know,
if there is.
I became a defense attorney. Is there a history? The answer is yes. I became a defense attorney because...
Let me talk about to the question. And it says, with your experience as a criminal attorney, are things getting better?
Okay. So I don't like to say, yeah, there's a history and that's it. I became a defense attorney because of Terrence Johnson. And if you've been in Prince George's County, Terrence Johnson, I think I was in the 8th grade. So it was like 78. And so that tells you how far back it was. Terrence Johnson and his brother were stealing money out of laundromats, out of the coin machines. I don't even know, do they still have laundromats? But the coin laundry machines. And they were stealing money out of that, and they were arrested. And sometime during his arrest, Terrence Johnson, a little kid, like 14, 15 years old, literally a kid, ended up shooting and killing 2 police officers in the precinct. And I remember starting in the case. I come from a family of 9 kids, and I'm the youngest. And I remember sitting around at the table, and everybody's in an uproar that this kid do that. And all of a sudden, I said, "But how did that happen? That he managed to have a police officer's gun in his hand and shooting?" The answer was they were beating him up, right? And that really. And when they showed the pictures of him in getting arrested, you could see he had a bruise on his head. I remember like it was yesterday. He had a bruise on his head. And that's what caused this horrible event. A kid getting arrested for stealing out of the coin laundry shouldn't end up with a bruise on his head and being so scared that he ends up pulling an officer's gun out of his way. That tells you how close he was to him, right? Because he was able to get the officer's gun out of his waistband. And he shot him. That's what started my career in this. And I never changed my mind since then. And so has it gotten better? Well, Mr. Green was shot, 7 times inside a police car. So I don't know if it's getting better. And what we have, and that's why this is important, because that's why the councilman makes a good point. That's why you have to vote in these, what you all are calling these little elections, and focus on the primaries. They're very important, because once the primary's gone, if I'm not a winner, well, then you're gonna be stuck with these same 5 people that we already know what they're doing.
And sorry to interrupt, but might I add, in a Democratic state, a blue state like Maryland, your primary is your only time for an option, not the general. Don't sit the primary out and think, oh, I'll come in November. No, your only chance to get Gladys was now, not then. She has to make it out of the primary. Then you have that option to choose again in the general election. So you have to stay engaged. Sorry.
Well, so what you guys are doing is working. I'm getting some comments here. Somebody says, wow, I will really check before voting. Thanks. So it means people really, they just go by what other people are saying. So what we're saying is that if we want to see a real change, like Denise was talking about, the councilman was talking about, we need to get involved in the process. We need to read, we need to make sure that people that are coming into elected office are people who will champion our cause. Exactly. And until we do that, we'll continue to complain and talk and be on the streets all the time. We want the change to start from the elected office. We want people there to use their position to bring justice. Mm-hmm. And if they are not bringing justice, vote them out. Get people in there who will give us justice.
But also just to add, Reverend Emanuel, you know, just a couple of weeks ago, I was reading an article about qualified immunity, Gladys. And qualified immunity, which was, you know, upheld by the Supreme Court, there are systematic laws that are put in place right now at the national level that have been put in place since the civil rights era that people are not aware of. And because we don't know these things, we are not a part of this national discourse. We're not challenging it. We're not asking questions about it. And so what is qualified immunity? When the president, you know, mentioned a phrase, when the looting starts, the shooting starts. That was a phrase that was coined during the 1960s, during the civil rights era. And it was coined for a reason. It was coined for a reason because of things like the qualified immunity. And it's immunity that's given to people like police officers to protect them from lawsuits, you know, because during that era, there were tons of protests. There were tons of looting. There was tons of rioting. And, you know, I'm just thinking, why are we not having these kind of conversations? Why are we not challenging, you know, these national laws at the national level? So the local level stuff is important. And I think that we should all get involved in local elections. We should all vote for our councilmen, our mayors, our government, you know, whatever. We should all get involved in these things. But if we're gonna put our effort into nationally driven headlines, right, then we need to challenge the national laws, the things that have been put in place at the Supreme Court level. And so if you want to just share, you know, for example, what is qualified immunity, for just people to just know. And for us, let's start to look into some of these things.
But you can't, and I can appreciate that, but what the councilman is saying is what's important, because we really can't change what the Supreme Court did. The Supreme Court is the Supreme Court. And so that's why you have to start at your local levels, because and I think that's the problem. We're running around trying to vote for the president, and your mayor and your judges are causing haywire in your community, and you're not paying attention because all you're worried about is what's happening at the national level. It's important. Don't get me wrong. It's important, but it's more important, really, for you to pay attention to what's going on in your community. Because if you're picking the judge now, the judges that are being appointed to the Supreme Court are the ones that you picked in your local election, or rather that you didn't pick. And so if you didn't pick them in your local election, and then they turn around and now they're federal judges, and now they turn around and now they're appointed to the Supreme Court, all that started way back in the beginning in the baby court, in the circuit court in your community. And that's where we have to start. We keep trying to jump all the way up there. Honestly, as annoying as he is, he's really not affecting me that much because I'm so affected by everything that's going on right here. Right here is the problem.
And this is not even to like get into I think party politics, but it's to just show that I think that we also have an opportunity to challenge national discourse as well. And so we should at the very least be aware of some of these things in addition to getting involved locally. And so these things happen simultaneously, in my opinion. You know, we can be involved at the local level, but we should be aware of what's happening nationally as well.
Let me come in, not to catch you, but in my years of being in this country, this is what I've observed. People are more involved in the political process when it's at the national level election. So we cannot ignore. Well, let me confess, or I have a ballot on my table here. It's mailed to me. I'm waiting until tomorrow, tonight, before I send it out tomorrow. You see?
Right.
I mean, if it's a general election, I'm all fired up and all ready. So usually we don't get involved at the local level, and we let it slide. And that's true, especially our people of color. And you know, we don't get involved. And like Gladys is saying, these are the same people, because you know they are building up experience, okay, from the level, and then they'll be appointed. Then Then by the time you realize they are now in the Supreme Court. So we need to not discounting the fact that we need to be involved in the national discourse and you know the process, but at the local level we need to get involved. And I think Denise, I've read a piece that you wrote, I think last week or something, where you had indicated that get involved in the voting process, get involved in the political process, put yourself on the ballot. You know, if you can, get yourself involved at a local level. And so we need to push that, because with the national, that it's all on the news, all right? So somewhere, somehow, you get involved in the argument and the debate. But at local level, come on now, people don't even know who is running for office.
Your local level is your change for tomorrow.
Right.
So when you have, especially with your issues with schools, nothing happens in a day, but your quickest change will happen at your local level. Your school board members, your county executives, your mayor, and as I mentioned, you have to be wise in who you choose for judge. As I'm supporting Gladys, because these people, these judges that get there, they serve a long time, and that's a long effect on your community. So you may, like I said, you may not be in the courtroom because you may not have an issue with the law. You may have not been discriminated against, but there are those that get in that position. You can't think about yourself. You must think about your community, and you want to protect your ground.
I'm sorry, you don't know when people always assume, well, that's them over there. You know how many people, you've seen how many people on the national level that 20, 30 years later, they're getting out because of DNA. That happened. Those people were convicted because of bad judging. Because if there's a case where there's a judge and they say, we don't even have fingerprints, and the judge doesn't, alert, that doesn't make them go, what? Like, what are you basing this on? Somebody shouldn't be in jail for 40 years only to find out that they weren't involved in something.
Well, you say that, before you continue, let me say this. I read an article, actually it was a documentary that I watched, where people have been in county jails for 18 months, 24 months, because they couldn't post a bail.
Right. Right. And half the people don't need to be locked up. That's very interesting that you brought that up, because I've had this argument all the time. People being locked up for minor crimes, waiting for trial. Because if you're like, I didn't do this thing, I'm not going to plead guilty. I don't care what happens. I'm innocent, and I'm not just going to fall because it's going to get me out quicker. You could be in jail for 18 months waiting for a trial, when the reality is you can be waiting at home. And you know who proved that? Coronavirus. Because what happened was, when the coronavirus hit, the state got worried, right? They're like, oh God, we got all these people in jail. If they start getting sick, family members are going to start suing. And so they start releasing all these people, and everybody's applauding. They're releasing the people. But what people should know is, they shouldn't have been locked up in the first place. And you know it because they're releasing them. If they were so dangerous, they didn't release the people charged with murder. They released all these people in these minor offenses, which they should have been released all along. There's no reason to have all these people detained, waiting for trial for stealing a package off my yard, off my porch. It's annoying to me, but I don't even want that person in jail waiting for trial.
So let's get the right judges in there. Let's get the right people who make the laws. Let's get the right people in the positions of power, so that if they are there and they have some common sense and they have heart, they will not go by what the system has put in place. Because see, like Denise was saying, this system has been built up from the slavery era. And you can argue about that, but that is true. The system is built up in a way that it's disadvantageous to a person of color. And one of the areas that we are lacking is being in positions of influence. The system can choke you not to even get there. The system can make you feel like it's unimportant for you to be in a position of influence and power. And that's one of the things that we need to start working on now.
Yeah.
That's what we need to start working on now, to make sure that we push the right people to the right places, irrespective of their political affiliation. Look at the agenda, look at what they stand for, look at whether if this person comes to office, is my life going to be better off?
Right.
Not because my parents are Democrats or my grandparents are Republicans or what, but let's think about ourselves. Let's think about how we can change the narrative. Stuff is happening. We are dealing with Mr. Floyd's issue. This is not the first one. And I can tell you this will not be the last one.
Right. Unfortunately. And my thought, I wanted to finish this thought is that stop thinking that it's not going to happen to your family. This problem about Criminal Reform Act is about somebody else. This can happen to anybody. You're going on about your business, and there are plenty of, we've been stuck at home for a long time. So I've been able to see plenty of these Innocent Project documentaries. Plenty of people just minding their business, got snatched up into the system and spent lots of years in jail. Just got snatched up because judges weren't doing the right thing. I can tell you, I had a case that was just reversed, and a judge said to me, the victim, I always say complainant, but the judge calls them the victim, and the state's attorney calls them the victim, was lying about specific things. And I had the proof. It wasn't I was guessing. I had a whole file of, he used to be a police officer and he got fired for the police force and why he got fired. A whole file on it. And I asked him about if he got fired. And she said, if you ask him if he got fired and he says no, you're stuck with that answer. I said, what do you mean I'm stuck with the answer? He was fired. Here's the proof. She said, you are stuck with the answer. I will not let you impeach him. That is, show him the evidence that he actually was fired from the police department and why. And the reason he was fired from the police department was because he had assaulted someone before. He had lied on his application about assaulting somebody, about having sex with a minor, a whole bunch of stuff. But she told me that I was stuck with that answer. Well, she said that in front of the prosecutor. He goes back out and gets the witness. The witness comes back in. I say, where are you fired from? Of course, I say, you were fired from the police department from lying. I wasn't fired. And she said to me, you're stuck with that. Now, my client got convicted from that lie. And that's what I'm talking about. That judge had the ability and the power to say, we're not going to let him sit there with that lie and let the jury think that this man is telling this is an honest man, because that's how he was sold to them, right? I was a police officer who changed my mind as opposed to who got fired for doing these things. And the Court of Appeals came back just about 2 months ago and said, no, you can't just let them stay with a lie. And not only did they say we're reversing this conviction, they said, Prince George's County, you have to pay for the lawyer for the next trial. But that shouldn't have happened. This whole time he's been in jail. This whole time waiting for somebody to tell this judge, you were wrong for doing that. And that's why it's important to pick your judges, because no way would I have ever let somebody tell somebody you're stuck with a witness's lie, when the courtroom to them is supposed to be to bring out the truth. And we got stuck with the lie. So
can we go back?
important.
So I kind of want to return back to the point of how can we ensure that we have people in these positions of power, right? Black women and men who are judges, who are DAs, et cetera. And I'm just thinking sort of being on the outside of sort of not being a local official, right? And for me in particular, being born and raised in a community like the Bronx, New York, and just sort of moving to Maryland, right? How can we ensure that, for example, young men and young women like myself who might have an interest in politics, right? They are aware of the different opportunities and the route, right, of becoming a local county official, running for office. Because for me, growing up in the Bronx, I realized that because there's a reason why local politics sometimes seems so distant. And it's because for our communities, right, being born and raised in the hood and, in Section 8, no one is talking about local politics to us. We're in a public school with 3,000 students, and our guidance counselors don't care to talk to us about that because they feel like we're not worthy of even holding those positions. And so it's really non-existent to us. So for the young Black girl and the young Black boy who's a senior in high school or who's a sophomore in college, who has an interest in these things, right? They don't have the same opportunities that, like I said before, John, who probably lives in Yonkers, or who lives in White Plains, or who probably lives in Gettysburg or wherever, right? They have different opportunities than we might have. And so in their mind, it seems so distant. it seems so far away because we don't even know how to start or where to go to in order to like, you know, come to a good understanding of what all this means. And so for you, Councilman, like, what encouraged you, right? You, like, for example, was there a mentor that you can share with, you know, someone that may be interested? So like, I think that we need to ensure that our young people have the same opportunities, that they're equipped, that they're encouraged, that they have the confidence and the hope that they can also start there and, you know, move up. Because you know, if we don't do that at that level, then we're skipping the step of ensuring that we can have these people in these local positions of power.
So for me, I grew up around local politics. My father was assistant town clerk, so it wasn't because of him why I wanted to be one. I was just around it. So because I was around it, I was like, okay. I saw that without an elected position, I saw my father go around, take pictures of the public schools, sent me to a suburban school through a CREC program. They shipped out inner city kids, and we would go to the suburban schools and we get a better education.
So you were fortunate enough, but for your average, you know, person.
Yeah. And so my father would take pictures of the schools that I was supposed to go to and what terrible condition they're in. So I'm advocating, you know, he's not getting paid for that. That's not his job. He's just saying, look, these schools are terrible. So seeing him do that and being being in the church leader and talking with all the older generation folks, I saw them and I'm looking, how do you make change? And I saw change slowly happening in the city. It wasn't immediate, but slowly happening. And so I guess growing up, I looked at it as, how can I do that? I don't always want to, how he had to go and say, hey, can you guys do this? Look at the evidence I'm showing you. I'd rather be the guy helping out there in the street with them, but also have the position to make the change for them.
Right.
So, but I would encourage them to go to city council meetings, talk to their local elected officials, talk to their state level, even national. Just get involved, talk, and encourage people like me to reach back and go talk to the kids as well. Meet them where they are. Hopefully your elected leader is doing that. And I would just...
Do they still have this civic classes? Because we had civic classes all the way back to probably elementary school. And so it was always on our agenda that you learned about these things. I don't even know if they have them anymore. So that's the thing, your school board elections, right? I mean, what are those people bringing to your schools? And that's a local election. Pay attention to who's running for your school board. Are they learning about different languages? All of that is important, but we just keep brushing that aside and rushing off to vote for the president. But that's the thing.
Yeah, this is what I also want to say. I also think that the church has a role, but also those of you who are people of color, who also, some of you are running for office or have been in positions where you have been able to influence the discourse in your own small way. I feel like you also need to reach out. Like Denise was saying, you're in the Bronx, you know, born over there, Session 8. What are you thinking about? You need somebody who has the experience in trying to change policy, who can reach out and, you know, say, look, this is what we can do at your age. You know, you need to start getting involved. I'm going to give you mentoring. I'm going to get this program going. So I think we need to have some kind of mentoring program which will help young men and young women of color to get involved in the political process at a very, very young age. And whilst we're talking, Gladys, a lady, one of the college students, I know the person personally, was asking, you know, what would you say to a young girl, Black girl who want to be an attorney? You know, what are some of the opportunities they have over there to be able to bring change?
So I always tell people that's an easy one for me because I work for the Public Defender Service. So the Public Defender Service in DC anyway has a great program for kids who want to be lawyers. They become intern investigators there. And so they're learning, they're around a whole bunch of lawyers. They go out with the lawyers to take statements and take pictures and investigate and learn about the process. So there's that. But I think the other problem that I wanted to say is people tend to move away once they've gotten to a certain point, right? And so none of the kids see any lawyers because the lawyers have moved out. I think I'm probably the only lawyer in my area because I just won't move. I'm like, we're here, that's it. And so the kid next door, who's now has been here since I've been here 15 years, now she's in high school. Now she's, asking questions. She's seeing me get in my car every day, going to court and asking questions. They're seeing my husband. And we got to be police officers too. Stop thinking that we can't be police. We need to be police officers too. You need people from your neighborhood to be able to police your neighborhood instead of somebody coming from somewhere else to police your neighborhood who doesn't care about you. All of that is important. So I just think that it should start in school. Maybe we should do a better job. I have gone and said to the school, look, I'm doing these know your rights. Some of them are just not interested. So we've got to make them interested. We have to insist on doing this so that kids can see there's something else to do other than, somebody said, what if we go to the country, we would have they'd have no musicians and no athletes. We're more than that. We've created a whole bunch of we're more than athletes and musicians. And so that's what these kids need to learn, that there's more to it than those two things.
I'm hoping when this pandemic I'm sorry.
There are some questions from online to the defense attorney. Well, this is going to generate a debate, but let me read that and I'll go to the what the defense attorney said something very striking, and that is challenging the police officers based on the rights that are available to us. We only challenge them based on the rights that are available to us. The person says, if I believe it is those challenges that end. Well, all right, so what he's trying to say, the sentence is not, what the person is trying to say is that we can only accept the rights that we do have, and that the person believes that sometimes people of color want to go outside of the power that we have, and we want to extend our reach. And so the person says they believe that is what creates the problem. Now, I know, can we talk about this? And I think I'll be the first person to go. Like I said, we do have rights, okay? But people are following all the rules. And yet, the change is not there. That's why the anger gets built up. So the next time I follow the rules, you ask me to stop, I stop. I did everything you want me to do. No camera, no nothing. It's my word against your word. I try to file a complaint. The system, it's your people who are there. You don't give me a chance. Then you meet me again next time. Somebody else meet me somewhere. The anger is building inside of me. And so now I want to get at them. But unfortunately, that's what put me in trouble. And so these are some of the conversations that we need to have. We need to have this. People are angry because they are doing the right thing and there's no justice. So I'm glad that you are running for office. And we pray that you will bring some fairness to the system. You bring some fairness to the system.
That's my goal. I want it to be that people can feel like, if nothing else, when I go in this courtroom, even if I don't like what she said, that she thought about it and she was fair. That's all we can do, right? But when you feel like when you're going in, like you're saying, you already feel defeated before you even get there. These people are already going to believe the police officer. That's a problem. You shouldn't be feeling that way. You should be feeling that you have a chance, that you have the right to be, and you got to pick the right lawyers. I mean, sometimes people will go and pick a lawyer because they're white. That's the truth. That's the truth of it. People will say, I'm going to go get a white lawyer. And guess what? Sometimes that lawyer is not really interested, or even a bigger lawyer with a bigger name. Sometimes they're just not interested in the details and want to hurry up and get it. If it sounds good, it sounds like a good plea, okay, you won't really have a conviction, so just do this for now. And see, we fall into those patterns of accepting these pleas and just hurrying up and getting through the system as long as you're not locked up. Sometimes it takes more than that in order for the system to work, right? And I've seen it a million times. I've gone in a courtroom where the lawyer walks in with a list with 10 names on it. That already tells me he's got 10 cases that day. That tells me he doesn't care about those 10 people. There's no way you can have 10 cases in one day and be prepared to make a right decision for each person. There's just no way. So that already tells me he got his $750 for each one of these. They're going to hurry up and plead guilty. He's got $750. The person's not in jail. He's happy. But he shouldn't be happy if he didn't do anything wrong. He should be saying, I didn't do anything wrong, and so I'm not okay with this. And so we got to go further.
And can I just use, I think, the church to pivot here real quickly, Rev? Because I feel like this is where the church also comes in, because, you know, in our churches, whether it's predominantly white, whether it's diverse, whether it's, you know, predominantly African immigrants, we have judges in our churches. We have police officers in our churches. They're white, they're Black, and they're diverse, right? And this is why the church has to be able to create spaces like this to have these discussions, because they're in our churches, they're listening to the sermons, and some of these things can only change when you have heart transformation. And as a believer, this heart transformation is led by the Holy Spirit. It's led by a pastor standing on the pulpit and talking about some of these things, and the white judge sitting in the congregation and hearing about some of these things and being led by the Holy Spirit to change his heart. And so that's why I have a huge problem with the churches and the pastors who are not creating these platforms for such discussions and who are not creating these dialogues, because for us, it's not just a political problem, it's also a very personal problem, okay? Right. And when it's personal, the church now has to take charge. The church now has to be in the driver's seat as believers, as church members, as leaders, as servants of the gospel. And, you know, and last week I had a huge debate with someone because they were trying to explain to me and tell me that let the church do what the church does, and that's only to pray and not get involved in justice issues. And that's wrong, because from Genesis to Revelations, it's all about justice. Mm-hmm. And Jesus Christ was all about justice. And so we cannot stand on a platform, and God has given us the influence over thousands of people, and not be able to have these discussions and tell people that your role is just to pray. When it's your son, and when it's your nephew, and when it's your grandson, you're gonna wanna do more than just pray. Yeah. And yes, we can all pray. We can all speak in tongues. We can all battle, because we're all not ignorant of the devices of the enemy. But we all need to be very involved in this social justice discourse, and our pastors have to do their job, and the members have to do their job. And we need heart transformation to take place, because if we don't do that, then we are just incomplete in this whole planning process thing. And so for me, you know, the churches still remain silent. The pastors who have not said anything, you know, you're doing yourself a huge disservice. And I think that it's actually negligence by not being able to have these discussions in your churches, especially if you're a white pastor with a diverse congregation. And you'll find that most Black pastors don't really have a lot of white congregation members. It's usually the reverse. And so we need everyone to play their part, because the church has a very key role in this. And it's prayer, and it's also the social justice part. It's very important.
That's true. That's true. The church needs to be involved, and that's why we have started this Let's Talk series, which is going to continue to start a discussion and also fire people to get involved at their different levels. You may not even be in politics, but God has placed you in the position of influence. Are you going to play by the same the book that I've been using, the manual they've been using all over the years? Or you are now going to come in as a righteous person, look at the system and say, I'm in a position of power, of influence. I can change. I'm a child of God. So it's true. We have to drive it from the pulpit. We have to get the discussion and debates going on in our churches. We still have to pray. but we also have to get involved. We have to motivate and encourage people to get involved in the political process, run for office, get involved, get involved, be a police officer, be a judge, be a lawyer, use all of that, be in the local politics. We need to do that, and we are ready for that. We are fired up for that, and we are going to do that too. And we pray that over the years, as the years unfold, that things will start to change. It's not going to just be a debate, but now we are going to see real change happening. And so, Councilman, you wanted to say something, right? I catch you.
I was just piggybacking off of both of them, adding some comments. But as far as she was saying, be the police officer, and I agreed with that. Encourage our young Black and brown people to be police officers in your own community. Change the culture of what it means to be a police officer. We know what it means to us now and how they're treating our community. And I'm not going to say all the police officers, but how us Black people, how we feel we're treated. But you can change that by simply being a police officer, changing the culture. When you go there, saying something when you see something. If you see one of them doing bad, stopping them, say, hey, that's not right. Don't do that. He's a man. He's a human. Treat him with respect. And it starts from there in the classrooms, like she said, the curriculums, getting on your school board member, your county executives, your local officials saying, hey, this is what we want to teach our kids in school. If they're not bringing what you guys want for your children, educating them with that, you could easily remove them. Nobody, this is no one's position to sit and just have at any level. At the national, don't let them feel so far removed from you that you can't get through to them. You're contacting their secretary, you never get a reply. Go down there, get a team of people, show up with 20. And there's a lot of organizations doing a lot of work. And I don't want to downplay the national part, because I was talking heavily on the local, because I want everyone to know you need to vote in your local elections. It affects you. But on the national level, as she was saying, there are laws that a lot of us don't know about. And we do need to advocate for change for them and hold your congressman or your senator accountable. And your congressman is elected every 2 years. They can easily be gone.
Right.
Hold them accountable.
Right.
So, defense attorney, I know you're running for office. Tell us, where can we get information about you? From what you are telling us now, you want to bring some change.
Absolutely.
You want to work for the people. You want to bring justice to the people. So where can we read about you? What do we need to do? Because we are beginning the process now.
Yeah, so the election is Tuesday. So what people can do now, one, you can always volunteer to help us, because we have to call, we're still calling voters, and we're still reaching out to people. You can help at the election, because we still have to reach out to people all the way to the last second while people are waiting to vote, to tell them about me, to learn about me. And I think it's important. The great thing about this mail-in thing is that everybody had an opportunity to go through every person's name. With the Googler now, you can find out about everybody. And if you Google my name, you will find out that I'm consistent. This is not something I came up with last week about who I'm going to be. This is who I've been since Terrence Johnson. I mean, I've always been for the people. I've never worked for the state. I've always worked. I worked for a union for a couple of years, again, representing people when they were having complications at work, stopping people from getting fired. And so you can go to my website, which is GladysWitherspoon.com, is my campaign website. But you can always, I tell people, don't just stop at the campaign website, because people write what they want you to see on the campaign website. So go to my law office website. You can see more about me there, which is witherspoonfirm.com. You'll find out that I've been put in jail a couple of times by judges for fighting too hard. You'll find out that I was doing these seminars. You will see where I have been all this time. And do that with the other people running. I encourage people to do that. Yeah, I'm sure I'm not everybody's cup of tea. Somebody probably does want everybody to go to jail no matter what. And so they wouldn't vote for me. But if you want to change in the system, if you really want someone who's going to be listening to you and you want to feel heard, your brother being heard, your nephew, your neighbor down the street, then it's time to really look us up and make a sound decision. You still have 2 days to look everybody up and pick the people that you really want to lead your community.
And I want to add, you get to choose 5 judges. So she's not sitting here saying, choose me out of everyone, I'm the only one. You get to choose 5. So at least one of them that you should know is for the people that have worked for the people for years. That's the least you can do for yourself as a community. That's the only way you can combat. And I'm not speaking against our state's attorney, but that's the only way you can combat if they were sending someone up, like I like to say, up the river and saying, we're going to ship this person to jail or put them in the courtroom. You want someone fair like her. That's the last stop right there. The attorney you hired for that person and the judge. So think about that before you vote, and please do your research.
Well, so what I want to say to everybody here is that make sure that you do some research during this 1 or 2 days that we have, and make sure that mail-in ballot goes latest by 2nd of June. Instead of Maryland, make sure it goes latest by the 2nd of June. We have the opportunity to effect change. Gladys is running for a judge in Prince George's County in Maryland. And so look her up, look other people up, and make your decision quickly. Whatever county you are in, make sure that you learn about the people over there and get involved. I like what the councilman said. He said, look, Maryland is a democratic state. The primary is the election.
Yeah, it is.
The people you choose in the primary, I mean, 99% of the time, they are the people who are going to represent you. And so we need to get involved, and this is where we can also change. Now, I want to thank all of you for coming on today. I want to thank you, the defense attorney. Thank you very much. And we are glad that you're running for office and to bring some justice to everyone. Thank you very much for taking up this task. It's not an easy one, but we pray that God's grace will help you. Thank you, Councilman, for your service to the city of Laurel. And we are praying that God's grace will keep you and help you to even rise higher and bring more change. And thank you, Denise, for what you do for young people and your passion for us to have justice in society. Thank you very much. We have a lot of questions. We can't talk about it today. So next week, we're going to have people joining us here, and we are going to now pick some of those questions for discussions. And so thank you all viewers who have come online to participate in what the discussions that we've had today is going to continue every week. We'll be having Let's Talk. So I would like for Denise to give you a final word. I would like for the councilman to give a final word, and I would like Gladys to give her final word.
So once again, thank you, Reverend Emmanuel. I think that this conversation is really critical, particularly in this time. And for me, my final word, I would just say that coming from the perspective of a believer, of a young Black woman, and then just sort of where I grew up and where I am now, I think that, in this COVID-19 season in particular, that each and every one of us, we have gifts and we have the capacity to play a role in ensuring that we are overturning this vicious system some way, shape, or form. And so I would truly encourage everyone to just, if you're a believer or whatever, just spend some time to figure out what your assignment is. What your assignment is to be an agent of change. And so despite whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, what is your assignment to be an agent of change to ensure that I am playing my part to overturn this vicious, violent system that we have consistently found ourselves in. Whether that means to start that grassroots organization, whether it means to tomorrow go on a website and figure out how can I run for a local office, how can I start to do that, whether it means to start a nonprofit mentoring organization, whether it means to start applying for grad school to become, to take the grad school exam, to, become a diplomat or to become a politician, or even going to law school. Figure out what is my assignment to become an agent of change and what role can I play to overturn this vicious system? Because now it's not just political, but it's personal. And we all need to make sure that we are playing our personal part and our personal role. So that's it for me.
Councilman?
I would just like to encourage everyone again to stay safe during this pandemic. I'd like to also piggyback on Denise, on talking about what is your assignment? Where do you fit in? Not just what do you want to do, but what is honestly for you? Meaning, are you going to be the next attorney? Are you going to be a politician? Are you going to be an activist? And sometimes you don't need a position to affect change. You can be right behind Denise. You can be the affecting change by giving the ideas to the person that makes the policy, that has the connection to talk to the politician. Don't wait on someone to come doing something for you. The time is now. There's never a wrong time to start. It's now. Tomorrow's not promised. I know this is a church forum, and so with that being said, I can say that I believe in God. And sometimes you may feel the things you go through that, you're alone. It doesn't matter who's there and nothing's going to change. But that's not true. Everything, I believe, happens for a reason. And part of those reasons being from the choices we make. God believes in freedom. So with that being said, I just want to encourage you all to get out and choose who you want to represent you. Please don't sit this out. And also, if you see something, say something. Stop. And do whatever you can to make this community, our community, a better place. That's it.
Gladys?
Thank you.
Final word, Gladys.
Thank you. So I first of all, thank you very much for inviting me to do this. This has been amazing to me. And I want to say that I've been fighting injustice for 25 years for a reason. And it's just, it just, everybody's looking the same every time. When I'm in court, everybody looks the same way. And I feel like we're getting the same result every time. And it's time to do something different. And so I encourage you, like I said before, I encourage you to look everybody up, that you really think about who you want to represent your community. And not just in the judge thing, like I said, the whole school board members, everything is important. And one thing that was said over and over is, what is your what she said, your role? Your role is what is in your heart. And so this is a great conversation, but be clear that everybody has a different role and a different way of getting their message across. Even the custodian becomes very important and an integral part of schools. And so nobody should feel like that's a less than thing. That's not the point here. I grew up, my dad was a auto body shop worker, and my mom was a banquet waitress. But one thing that I did know was every janitor's name in the school. And he taught me that you have to know people's name and respect them. Nobody is less than. And I think that that's exactly what's happening in the court, that so many judges think that that the people in front of them are less than. We are not. We're all on the same playing field. We all just have different roles. And I want to encourage you to really focus on who you are and how you're going to present to other people, no matter what you're doing. And I also obviously, I want you to encourage you to vote for me and to look me up. And I promise you, you're not going to be, and it's true, it's 1 of 5. You don't have to pick all 5. If you don't know 3 of them, but you like 2, if you only like 1, if you like all, if you have 5 people you want to vote for, but there's got to be room for a regular person to be a judge in Prince George's County. So, and thank you so much again.
Thank you all for coming on, and God bless you. And next week, a new team will be here at 4:30 to talk about race diversity in the church. God bless you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.